Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And joining us today is Mistare Fusion.
I am Mistare Fusion. That's me.
Not that other guy in the room who's very, very quiet and will say nothing throughout the entire podcast.
Finally, we're doing our podcast with Lance, and today we're going to talk about something that Lance came up with. Lance, what's our topic today?
Our topic is superhero movies, animated or live action, or versus live action, something like that. There's a word in between animated and live action. I'm not sure which word it should be, but there's a word there.
So we're gonna talk about
the answer is Photoshop. I think I see it.
So we're going to talk about whether or not certain superhero properties work better in animation versus live action with regards to film, and whether or not we wish that more of animation could work in movie theaters, because of course that doesn't happen anymore, and things like that. So Lance, why don't you kick us off? Why don't you get the ball rolling?
Well, of course. Well, as we were talking about before we started recording, in America, it's just really, in terms of theatrical presentations, you don't really get much in terms of animation aside from just strictly general audience type of fare. You got the Disney movies, and you have some more of the CG type of stuff, but superheroes rarely ever get animated movies in theaters. We got A Mask of the Phantasm, and when that didn't go over too well, it sort of seemed to seal the deal on whether or not we continue to get movies like that, and so now they're all just direct-to-video. But it seems like a comic book type of adaptation might be better served going into an animated route, but it just doesn't seem terribly viable at the moment.
Yeah, and I think we should be clear that we're talking about adaptations, because we have, of course, had a couple of popular superhero movies that were animated, but they were original things. In Incredibles, and I guess you had what was that movie that came out last year that was more of a supervillain thing? I didn't
Despicable
see
Me?
it.
Oh.
No, Despicable Me. Megamind. That's what I
Megamind.
was thinking of. Yeah, I didn't actually go to that.
It was good. It was really good. I just saw it about a month ago for the first time.
I heard great things about it. But yeah, I mean, it seems like if it comes from like one of the regular animation houses like that, they do okay, but nobody wants to adapt them.
Yeah.
Well, I think especially over the past 20, probably at this point maybe 30 years now, since special effects have become to be been more advanced, that studios just see it as more interesting to try and do those larger-than-life characters as a live-action thing, just to be able to make it as real as possible.
Yeah, real is the key word. I don't think it's so much about interesting as it is audiences in America have been conditioned to find real life more viable than animation.
I think people have this personal fetish that they just want to see this thing real. Like, no, it's not good enough that it exists in comic book format. We have to see it with live action people. We're getting things like Scooby-Doo, the live action movie.
Oh, yeah.
And it's absurd to me. We already have it in a motion format, Granted, I say comics are a kinetic medium, and so would be, theater and movies. But, it's not motion, so that's what people want. They want that live action thing, and I think, personally, I think it's overkill. I'm happy with a good animated movie, but that's just me.
Well, take it back to Superman the movie. The tagline was "You will believe a man can fly." That was like its marketing campaign was we've made this so realistic looking that even in real life you'll believe that that Superman could actually exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not to say that it obviously wasn't worth doing. I mean, it was worth doing.
Definitely, it was great.
But I think that part of the problem these days, you said that effects have gotten so much better. What drives me kind of crazy is when we think that way. Okay, it's live action. We have live action people. We now have the CG technology to back it up and do virtually anything we want to on screen. And yet, a lot of the time, it seems to me like what you're looking at looks mostly animated, except for the human characters in the first place. So when the two things aren't meshing, I get taken out of the movie and I can't suspend my disbelief. And so I feel like it needs to be either all animated or the CG needs to look so good I can't tell that it's CG. And I don't want my live-action movie to look like video game cinematics, which seems to be more and more what we're getting these days with these sorts of things. And I felt like I had that in spades with Green Lantern.
Ooh, sorry, I'm choking. The Green Lantern, it does look like a video game thing to me. And personally, when they get to that point, I think they should just go ahead and make it an animated movie. But really, I think that was the least of Green Lantern's problems. And I wonder if people would have been able to accept it more had it been a better movie.
Well, I mean, in that case, I mean, is it better to do, if you're going to do an animated superhero movie, would it be better to do it CG or better to do it traditional hand animation, because you get hand-drawn animation, because you get to that point where there's so much CG in a live-action adaptation anyway, that is there really that much distinction between the two of them? It's like, I haven't seen Green Lantern, but based on what I've heard about it, it does sound like there was sort of either trying to blend the line or just blended the line and just didn't work out because of that.
Well, you have a lot of scenes in that movie when you're in the space. Well, not a lot. That's part of the problem, is that we're not in space enough in that movie. But like you've got scenes where 90% of what you're looking at on screen is CGI. That's not a problem. It's just that it's not a problem if it blends well. You know, if I'm buying the renders. But it really felt to me like just a lot of animated stuff with human heads popped on top of, animated bodies. And Vince is right. Like it has a lot of story problems. But I feel like the script writing process must have suffered from the way they decided to film that movie.
I haven't actually seen a good Green Lantern movie, animated or not, and I haven't seen the new animated movie that came out right before the movie did, I think.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either.
I saw Green Lantern First Flight, and it was, mediocre. Yeah, and I've seen other Green Lantern things, like a lot of Green Lantern origin stories are just not interesting. And I think the key reason for that is that the Green Lantern origin is not interesting. But it's not something that I find compelling. It's about a guy who gets found by a ring, and now he has this superpower, and it's like, sure, I can accept that a ring can just find this person, but that doesn't make for good storytelling. The best one, I think, was I forgot what it's called, but it was
but it was awesome!
It was the Justice League, New Frontier.
New Frontier, yeah.
I think that's the best Green Lantern animated or live action movie that we've had.
Yeah, and even that, the Green Lantern parts weren't what I loved about it.
Yeah, I didn't mind them. I thought, he was something that tied it all together.
Well, let me take this in a different direction, Vince. What would be the point of making a, air quote, live-action Silver Surfer film?
That's a terrific point.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, what I'm talking about are characters that are mostly in a cosmic kind of setting where most of what you have to do are visual effects anyway. So, if you have something like, okay, we're going to have a human being become a Green Lantern, so we need that to be live action. I kind of sort of get that, but then the issue ends up being what's more fun and what's more engaging, the Earth parts or the space stuff. Well, the space stuff would have been a lot more fun had they spent more time on it, but that costs a lot of money to keep doing all those giant visual effects shots. So we have to do a lot more stuff on Earth, and that was what kind of bored me with it. And so that's part of why I was sort of like, well, if they could just do the whole movie CG, we probably would have gotten a better story because we could have been out with the core. If you did a Silver Surfer film, you'd want the whole thing to be CGI or even 2D animation, but like, what would be the point of live action? Because, well, we're not gonna put a dude in a suit, that'd be dumb, and most of the supporting cast would be alien creatures we have to build in a computer. So honestly, I think that the answer to this question is it really depends on the property. I get the point of trying to do Batman in live action because Batman's a very gritty, realistic kind of thing that is very surface and street level. That's that sort of thing. It's about a dude on planet Earth. Although then you think about things like Ninja Turtles, which should not have worked in live action, but totally did.
Yeah. But especially in properties like Batman, where the Nolanverse. Well, first of all, Batman is the only one I can think of. It's the only one that actually has had theatrical showings in both live action and animation. But with the Nolanverse has become so realistic that would you even get any advantage over doing an animated version of something like that? I mean, granted there was Gotham Knights, but that was straight to DVD as well. But yeah, if part of the draw of doing animation is to be able to stretch the suspension of disbelief a little bit more than you would in live action, because you can buy some more over the top stuff. If you do Batman that's so grounded to earth, is there any advantage of doing it in animation?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I think that there sometimes is advantage to it just because there are certain characters in I think every superhero universe that just look good drawn that don't look good live action. Prime example would be the Green Goblin. Nobody can make that costume look good in real life. Or at least on a, I mean, I've seen some pretty cool cosplaying stuff, but I just mean like on a movie theater screen. And so what we ended up with was something that I think was actually even a little sillier looking than what we had in the comics. But yeah, I mean, the thing about it is you're talking about adapting something that was made for a certain medium. So when you're looking at certain things in comics, sometimes you have character drawings that just look good on a page, and then sometimes you have things that are just physically impossible to do in real life, like the Tick mask. When they decided to do a Tick live action show, they did everything they could do trying to make that face mask look right, and they couldn't do it, so they just took it off. So in the live action show, the Tick has no face mask, which when I first saw it took me a little bit to get used to. I was like, but he has no mask. He has this thing around his head, but there's no mask. It's weird. And then the more I thought about it, then I would see like fans like try to draw a mask on it, and I'd go, yeah, it doesn't work.
I've always wondered about this, and it's sort of been a challenge in my mind. Would it be possible to do a serious take on Batman while still retaining his comic book costume?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Batman Dead End did a good job.
Better than that was City of Scars.
Oh,
Are those fan projects?
Yes.
I haven't seen those. Let's check those out. Because I've always thought it'd be possible, especially, I mean, if Superman can pull it off, the Christopher Reeve costume always looked great. I would think that, you know, as long as you have a guy who's muscular enough to actually fill out the costume in a good way, not like a stomach kind of way like Adam West could occasionally do, but
I think what you have to do is take I think story wise the way you make that costume work, Lance, is you take the emphasis off of the gadgets.
Yeah, and do sort of a scaled back, almost sort of like retro type of Batman, maybe like a sort of serial-esque, but do it more serious.
Exactly, a little bit where it's more about the street level, being a detective thing, and a little bit less about all the gadgetry. And that's not to say that you can't still have a Batcave and a Batmobile and all that stuff. I think the gadgetry can be there. It's just that you don't draw as much attention to it. Honestly, when we're talking about just like a person in a suit doing what superheroes do, fighting, running around, jumping on rooftops, grappling, that suit makes a lot more sense visually because you know how heavy those rubber latex suits are.
Yeah.
And it's hard to even buy people doing what they're doing in them. And for whatever reason, for both franchises now, the people making these movies still have decided that that's more believable looking than something more like spandex. I don't buy it. And the other thing is, I think making spandex work with a dark character is all about lighting. As long as you light it right, and basically what you have to do is just don't show too much of it at one time.
Well, considering that Batman has, and this feels strange to say, but considering that Batman has ninja training, and he hides in the shadows, and you have umpteen $1 million that you can devote to lighting, sure, why not? I would agree with that statement.
What I'm hoping is that the Avengers opens the floodgates for this.
Well, what I was thinking is something that really comes out in animation really well is something like, say, Batman's cape. Think about the animated series where he could wear it as a cape, and sometimes it would just be a complete cloak, and it could do whatever you wanted it to do. I'm sure. I mean, obviously you could do that in live action too, just like different capes. I mean, they were doing that even in the Tim Burton films, just switching out different types of costumes. But I don't know if it could be quite as quite as almost magical.
You can't. That's the thing. Live action can never be quite as stylized as animation or comic book panels, because when you look at characters like Batman or Spawn, characters with capes, and you're reading a comic book, a lot of the time, panel for panel, the capes are different sizes. It just depends on what they want to show in a panel, and you just can't do that in live action and make it work, and you can't do it and make it cost effective because you have 50 different capes. But I mean, like when you're drawing this, you're not thinking that much about it. It's just okay. In this panel, the cape looks right to flow totally off the panel, and or he's jumping into frame, and so it's flowing out like he's got wings or something. You just can't do that in live action.
This phenomena is not entirely different from the two assets that Power Girl uses in her comic books. Different sizes from panel to panel.
Is this the second time in a row on the podcast that you've mentioned that?
I think it might be, and I am highly satisfied with being able to work that in there.
It's becoming a thing, Vince. It's a running gag now.
It's two things, as it turns out, but independent from one another. But I think a good thing to look at for the topic that we actually have at hand is that. Sorry. Anyway,
we're only 15 minutes in. I think it's a good time to actually talk about the real topic. Go ahead, Vince.
Joking aside, I mean, there are certain things that I think should be left to animation, and I personally didn't hear many people, if any, complain that they didn't have the classic blue and yellow suits in the X-Men movies. And I have no problem. There are things that are tonally different between what somebody would expect to see in a cartoon and what somebody would expect to see in a live-action movie.
Yeah, making something effective, you're right, it's all about the tone of the piece. It isn't that these characters looked like this in the comics, so they must look like this in live action. It doesn't always work that way. What Bryan Singer did in the first two X-Men movies was something that was tonally quite different from the comics in a lot of ways, and he did make it feel a little bit more real and true to life. At the same time, when they finally did bring something that looked closer to that into it with First Class, it looked great, and that's a very different movie.
That's a good point. I also think it's sort of a time type of thing, considering that.
You think they got away with it because it was the '60s?
Well, yeah. I mean, people can't really wear certain things outside of certain eras. I mean, you wouldn't see somebody wearing, whatever that they wore in the 80s. I don't know what they call that stuff, but it all looked ridiculous. But you see it all over 80s movies, and if something was set in the 80s and nobody wore stuff like that, and they all dressed like they did in the modern day, you'd question it.
It was kind of like what you were just saying about if you want to do a Batman with a comic book type costume, you have to do it, back as if it was the 40s kind of thing.
Kind of, although I'm not sure. I mean, just how modern, air quotes, is the spandex? I mean, not the spandex, the rubber suit costume.
I think it's all about combat ready. People expect them to be. Here's a one-man arsenal, so we have to make this man like a tank.
Oh, see, I just don't even think about stuff like that.
Yeah, but it was especially jarring on Superman when they changed him to that, because he's the one person who wouldn't need something like that.
Oh, and this has nothing to do with anything, but I do have to mention that that they're doing this in the comics now with the New 52, giving everybody armor. And I don't care for that. We don't need that in comics. I think it's a mistake to try to make it's not that they look terrible or anything. The design is okay, but it feels more like I'm looking at a storyboard for a movie project now than I'm actually reading a comic, because it feels like the movies have influenced the costumes of the comics too much. So Vince, when you were talking about X-Men, you're absolutely right that it wasn't a problem that suddenly they were wearing black suits instead of yellow or blue suits. But it was a problem when it went the other way, that when the comics started using the black suits, because it doesn't look good in comic books.
Oh, I don't know. I was kind of okay with it. It was,
Really?
Yeah,
But those suits never looked silly in the context of those stories. They didn't need to, even if you think they look okay, they didn't need to be changed.
Probably just marketing.
even with the if you look at like Whedon's run on Astonishing X-Men, they started making those classic yellow and blue suits kind of go towards the more armorish look, or I mean, and let's be realistic. There's different kinds of armor, and I think it's perfectly okay to let a comic book character's costume evolve into so it looked like he was wearing spandex back in the 60s when the character was created, but now Daredevil's being drawn as if he's wearing a leather protective suit.
Yeah, that's okay. I just don't want it to get too busy in a panel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that sometimes we might be sort of setting out for unrealistic expectations of what we expect these artists to actually include in the intricacies of the suits.
Yeah, exactly. It's goofy. I mean, you used to hear comic creators, decades ago complain about having to write team books because they had to draw too many different characters, and we're making artists draw like every button and zipper on a costume, it's funny how it's evolved. It's like nobody I don't think anyone's allowed to complain about drawing multiple characters anymore. They've got all kinds of other stupid things they have to put into every panel. It's like, I don't know. It's gotten uber complex. Having said that, the arts, a lot of the modern art is amazing compared to some of what we used to have. So, I don't know. I'm not. Yeah, go ahead.
What's interesting is when you look at animated movies and they have these intricate details. It's like an echo of what you would see in a live action movie. It's like they're trying to achieve what those live action movies do, and they can't just let themselves be what they are.
Yeah, and I don't like that. It's like somehow that's somehow more of a valid art form, and that's ridiculous.
What I was thinking about animated versions in general, or at least, or even just directed to DVD, even if it wasn't animated, although they generally tend to be, is often gives characters who wouldn't normally get a movie to be able to be exposed to a wider audience.
Yeah, I wish that happened more than it has been. When we're talking about the movies DC is making, they've been trying to do more of that, and the movies haven't been selling well enough. So Warner Brothers has been making them make pretty much just Superman and Batman movies. Green Lantern was an exception because it had a movie coming out. They've wanted to do a Flash movie. They haven't been allowed to do a Flash. They've wanted to do a Green Arrow movie. They haven't been allowed to do that. So I mean, like characters are maybe getting more exposure because of the storylines they're choosing to adapt, where they're able to fit them in, but it's got to feature Batman and Superman, or they can't make it.
Well, think of Wonder Woman. She got directed DVD animated movie years ago.
That's what killed it.
Yeah, and then it just had that pilot live action. So she's gotten both animated and live action. Neither one have led to anything better. I don't know if that's an indication of these types of movies in general, or just Wonder Woman.
Yeah, well, I think that it kind of does, although, and this is an entirely different topic. I mean, we could talk Wonder Woman all day. A lot of that is Wonder Woman. She's never been able to attract a very wide audience.
Well, the 70s TV series lasted for a few years, so that's probably the best she's been in terms of pop culture.
That's true. That's true. Although it kind of turned into something a little bit different than what she was in the comics. Although that's somewhat splitting hairs too, because she gets changed every 2 years or less. But I mean, like Wonder Woman was really interesting because the first season was very close to the comics, and then they just made it a totally different thing after that.
Yeah.
But as far as the direct-to-video things go, I'm glad you brought up Wonder Woman, because that's the movie where, because it didn't sell very well, they wouldn't let them do any more characters like that.
That's so weird though, because it was reviewed really. Yeah, it was really good. It was reviewed pretty well too.
It was awesome. Yeah, I loved it. I did a 22-minute review on that movie. I could not believe how much I had to say about that thing.
Part of I think the deal with Wonder Woman is iconic enough that people know about her, but she's not.
Sorry, I mean the Swedish fish.
As opposed to those Norwegian fish.
They're not quite as good, and they only come in one flavor.
Norwegian?
Fish?
Yeah. Norwegian. I was hoping someone would fill that joke in, because it had no punchline. Hey, I'm sorry, Vince. Go ahead.
What was I saying?
fish.
Swedish fish. Pretty fishy. Oh, but
This is
Woman,
off
I
the
think
rails.
is one of those, like, people don't necessarily like Wonder Woman. People want to like Wonder Woman, but they don't actually like Wonder Woman.
Me and Lance like Wonder Woman.
No, I see what Vince is saying though. It's like they like her as a concept rather than as an actual thing to be watched. It's sort of like people wearing Hello Kitty or something who's never even seen a Hello Kitty cartoon or anything before. It's a symbol.
Yeah, although I think for some people even Superman has that, but you're absolutely right. Wonder Woman is this really unfortunate vicious cycle where it's become almost a chicken and the egg thing, where it's like nobody knows exactly what Wonder Woman is supposed to be, so they can't be a big fan of her, and because we don't have enough big fans of her, she never becomes anything anybody likes. That's what's happened with that character. It's really kind of unfortunate. But yeah, so like I said, I mean that's a lot of the reason that we're not getting a lot of other characters in animated movies. So when we can't even get people to go out and buy those DVDs of these, not even, I mean, they're feature length, but like they can't even make these things longer than 80 minutes, so they're kind of tied a little bit in what they're able to do. Lance, I don't know if you know this, but the Dark Knight Returns adaptation they're actually going to do as 2 movies just so they can get it all in there.
Really, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Because they're always stuck to the 80 minutes. And I wish they had done that with some other things. I was always really, really, really disappointed with Superman Doomsday because they took a really giant, huge 3-part story and put it all in one movie and then left most of it out and made it kind of a different thing. So that should have been a mini-series before it was an 80-minute feature. And so if you can't even get people to buy those, and if they don't even have the money to make anything longer than 80 minutes, I don't see how we're ever going to get any animated superheroes back in the movie theater.
Well, going back to the very beginning, the one that started it all, why do you think that Mask of the Phantasm failed to attract an audience? I mean, this is right after Batman Returns. You'd think that was there'd be enough hype there to fund.
Yeah.
Wasn't it advertising?
It was advertising. It had 0 advertising, and the reason is just like Lance said, they kind of decided somewhat at the last minute, I think, that they were going to put that in the theater. Or maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm not entirely sure, but they kind of, when it went in the theater, they maybe made a couple of trailers, but that was about it. I mean, as popular as that series was, they really should have been able to sink a little bit of money in advertising. And I think that if they had, it would have done a lot better. That was first season of that show, and it was really, really, really popular. I don't think it was that people wouldn't have gone if they knew about it. I think just nobody found out about it, and I don't think it was very widely released either. I mean, like I think it showed up in some theaters, but I don't think that it stayed very long. Most of the theaters that got it probably only had it for a couple of weeks.
Would we be having this conversation right now if that movie had picked up an audience?
Maybe not. Very, very possibly not. What's also interesting, I should bring up is that we've had other examples of this since then with other properties, where we find that the huge popularity of an animated TV show does not necessarily mean that the movie won't bomb. This happened with Powerpuff Girls, and it floored me. Powerpuff Girls was extremely popular when that movie came out, and nobody went to see it. 2 million opening weekend is all it got.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Why? I can't answer this question. I have no idea. I mean, is it because the people who watch that show just don't go to movie theaters? I didn't get it.
I don't know. I mean, I certainly recall being a Powerpuff fan around the time that movie came out, but I didn't go see it in the theater. I still haven't seen that movie. I've only seen your review of it.
What? Oh, it's great. I am probably.
I want to see it.
I'm probably one of 5 people that went to that went more than once to see that. I think I went 2 or 3 times to see that.
I don't know. It's like I'm sure it's good, and I do still want to see it, but I just don't know. I just never had the motivation to actually do it. I don't know why that is.
See, and that's what's so interesting about this phenomenon. It's like, why didn't people go? Yeah, I don't get it.
Sometimes things are a significantly different beast when they hit the movie theater. And it takes away a lot of the charm that it had when it was on TV.
Why do you watch more from Power Rangers the movie?
Except that was hugely successful. Everybody went to that.
Yeah, but it was still different.
Yeah,
but it was because it's live action.
Yeah, but well, maybe so. But Vince, here's the thing. You're right about that statement, but I don't think that has anything to do with what we're talking about. I don't think that mentality hits anybody when they decide if they're going to go see a movie. I really think for most things it's like, I love this property. Oh, cool! They made a movie. I'm going to go see it. I don't know why it doesn't work that way with cartoons, but it seems to work that way with pretty much everything else.
Yeah, I mean, it might work that way in terms of just animation, in terms of what people are more willing to feel is big enough to warrant them to pay money to go see this, and maybe live action just feels feels grander.
Yeah, I don't necessarily believe this when I say it, but I wonder if the problem with the Powerpuff Girls movie was that there were people that were ashamed to admit that they liked the Powerpuff Girls.
I think you're onto something there, yeah. And also, what we might be discovering there too, when it comes to Powerpuff Girls, which I don't think is true with Batman, with Phantasm, is that there were more people buying the stuff than watching the show. I think there was definitely a lot of that going on because Powerpuff Girls turned into this big merchandising cash cow for girl stuff, and I think you had a lot of girls buying into it who didn't really even watch much of the show and didn't realize that it wasn't really a prissy girl show, because it wasn't.
I think that's sort of a similar phenomenon that happens with Wonder Woman. People like that female symbol of power, but they don't actually like the stories that are written about her because, a lot of them kind of suck.
Well, I mentioned this in one of my Wonder Woman. In one of my Wonder Woman videos, I mentioned that it's like anybody, even people who don't know comic books, know where Batman came from, know what Superman's origin story is. But even people who, might say, "Oh, yeah, I like Wonder Woman. She's that symbol of most people can't tell you Wonder Woman's origin story."
Yeah,
and when I said they kind of suck, I was actually referring to Wonder Woman and her shaky history.
Yeah.
Not saying Powerpuff Girls sucks. Because it doesn't. Yeah.
Because it's awesome. Yeah. let me put this. Let me try to put this into context a little bit. As we're nearing the end of this. So we're talking about why this happens, but my question to both of you guys is it a problem? Like how much do we wish this was different?
I wish people would take the approach that Rob Zombie takes to CGI in movies.
It all goes back to Rob Zombie for Vince.
Yeah, that's right. See, Rob Zombie makes terrible movies, but he does have a very good approach to CGI. He said, if you can tell that it is CGI, then you haven't done your job. That's what he told the people on his production crew. So, I think that's a terrific way to go about it. I mean, if everything has to be live action, which I think is annoying, because I am perfectly satisfied with an animated TV series or an animated movie, because I don't need Cowboy Bebop to be a live action movie. Wait, I guess that was really bubbling beneath the surface the whole time. But anyway.
Well, Vince, I guess what I'm asking is, do you wish that we got more serious animation in movies, just in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people would be less enthralled with the idea of live action movies if they were satisfied by not live action movies. But I still think people would cry out for them. I mean, I still think that there would be a general interest to say, I mean, they have Sailor Moon, so why not have Sailor Moon the live action show? It's almost like science for science sake. Like, let's see if we can clone Billy Bob just to see if we can actually clone Billy Bob. It's not like we need another one of him walking around on the planet.
Yeah, they want to see if they can pull that off in quote unquote real life.
Yeah. But it also just sells better. And I still say that Hollywood has conditioned us this way. It's not, I don't know. It's not fair. When stories are working visually, regardless of the medium, and they're either really super fun or really poignant or, whatever makes it worth watching, it shouldn't matter what medium it's in.
Agreed. It's stinks that it's that way, but I don't really know what we would have to do to change that. I mean, other than just start making a bunch of them and tell people to watch them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think honestly, it's going to be up to. This is maybe my answer to everything these days, but I think ultimately it's going to be in the hands of independent filmmakers. As we're seeing, more and more people having the funds and the means to make things outside of Hollywood. And we're seeing Hollywood shrink a little bit. And we're seeing independent stuff grow. That's if anything changes it's going to be that shift to independent filmmaking.
But is that even possible? I mean, because so many of the major comic book characters are owned by major motion picture studios. Like Warner Brothers has DC. So would an independent film company ever be able to do something? Something that wasn't original.
I guess, yeah, you're absolutely right. I guess I'm talking about just generally people taking animation more seriously. No, you're absolutely right. They have the rights to their characters, and right now live action is where it's at. So, but there's pros and cons to everything. We've got some really, really great superhero movies coming out right now. And it's not like they would all be better if they were animated. I'm certainly not saying that. I just think that there are certain properties that maybe we'll never see done right because they can't. I mean, like what we're mostly seeing in live action are the ones that can be done in live action, with a few exceptions that I don't think should have been. Well, that maybe could have been tried, but I don't think they were tried. They were done right. You know what I mean?
Hey, but Ghost Rider.
Yeah, Rise of the Silver Surfer. Which I liked Silver Surfer. He looked fine. It's just I'd like to see an actual real Silver Surfer with a real Galactus and not a freaking cloud. And and those were CG creatures because they have to be. But like I said I want to make this point real quick. Like I said with costumes, I think that Avengers is making it. Is maybe making people more and more okay with more comic book looking costumes on screen. I really those movies leading up to Avengers, and then now what we're seeing in the trailers with Avengers. I love how they've pretty much just pulled costumes right off the panels. So it's nice that we're able to get transfers like that we didn't used to. They don't all look like really bulky suits that are like 250 pounds.
I'm okay with it. I actually don't mind what they did with Hawkeye. But it sort of bothers me that now Hawkeye in the Ultimate Universe and Hawkeye in the regular universe and Hawkeye in the movies kind of look the same.
Oh yeah, see, I don't even keep up with Hawkeye, so I wasn't even paying attention to that.
Yeah,
gotta be honest with you.
Actually, Hawkeye died back in one of those Brian Michael Bendis Avengers Disassembled things, so I don't know if he's alive again. I think he is, and I think he looks like the guy from the movie, but I'm not entirely certain about that.
Well, see, I don't know if we've even seen him in a while. Well, no, that's not true. He was in Spider Island. What am I talking about? He got spider powers in Spider Island. Oh. So, he's alive because he was in Spider Island along with everybody else. So, yeah, he got brought back, I think, quite a while ago, but I don't know where.
Because Hawkeye's death doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, but whose does, dude? Ultimately, whose does? Well, hey, let's go ahead and go to the rant, shall we? Vince, you got a rant?
Yeah. You got a rant?
I got a rant. Let's do this. Go ahead.
Cool. There's people pronouncing words wrong has been driving me nuts lately. And it's okay if they don't pronounce it correctly because they just don't know. But then there's this sort of this arrogance that people are like, oh, I heard a different way to pronounce this word, so I'm going to say it this way. And I can't believe how many people recently have said Draculia to me rather than Dracula. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but there's no I or E or Y that appears in the word Dracula. It is Dracula, not Draculia.
And wouldn't it look goofy if it was there?
Yeah. What was it you said earlier? It was
he sounds like he should be wearing pigtails.
It's Dracula.
Draculio.
Yeah. No. Well, no. That would be cornrows. I just mean like it sounds like a girl's name.
No, there are other words that drive me nuts when people say them this way, and I understand that it is kind of an accent thing, but it doesn't have to be because it's just lazy speech. Like pictures. Can I take your picture? Mm. No, I have my tea in that. Would you please give it back to me? or wrestling. no A in that word. Wrestling. Like, I don't give a crap what your accent is. You do not say, wow, I'm really tired. I should sit down and have a rest. That makes no sense.
Yeah,
and another one that's getting my goat lately. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, to be fair, some of that ends up being so generational that you can't get it out of a person's accent. When you're talking about people from the Deep South who say things like battery and wrestling and things like that, you're talking about a lot of the time people who have heard everyone in their family say it that way their whole life, and then those people heard their parents say it that way. You know what I mean? Like yeah, it's dumb and it sounds silly, and most of them probably know it, but like that's how everyone in their family talks. Like,
yeah. And I do suppose that there is, when I'm around a particular group of people for a long period of time, I tend to kind of adapt their accent and start talking like them, but.
Oh, if you were, I thought that was just me. That was, okay. Good. I'm glad it's you too.
No, every time Vince hangs out with Klingons, he just growls like crazy. It's weird.
Same thing that happened to me when I hang out with my bear. And here's another one that drives me nuts, by the way. I feel like I have to say this one. Anime and manga and
that's how I say it. That's how I say anime and manga. That's what I say.
And karaoke. And
I occasionally do that one for fun.
Yeah, me too. See, every so often I'll say it jokingly, but it annoys me when people act like it's a matter of principle. Like, you don't know how to pronounce it. I'm like, you're in America. We're using the American pronunciation of it. We could just call it Japanese cartoons, so calm down.
Yeah, Vince, I think you've hit something interesting on this. Isn't your problem less how people are pronouncing it and more you being irritated when they tell you how you have to pronounce it?
Yeah, that's fair. It's kind of with the Draculia thing and with anime, that really drives me nuts.
Why though?
But with pictures, I don't tell people that they can't pronounce it that way. I just kind of grit my teeth and go, ew, I wish you wouldn't say it.
Well, let me ask you about this though, because I mean, the Draculia thing is just weird. I don't know where that comes from, but with some of those other words, you're talking about the way that they're pronounced in the countries that they were that the words originated from. So like, why does it bother you that much that people are pronouncing them the way that they were originally meant to be pronounced?
You see, it really doesn't bother me if somebody walks around if that's what they heard up their whole life, like anime, and I'd be like, wait, what are you talking about? And they say, oh, I guess you call it anime. I'd say, oh, okay, cool. Now we know.
It's funny because I find that pronunciation anime to be somewhat phonetically displeasing to me. I don't know why that is. I don't know, it just sounds weird.
Well, yeah, because it's the Americanized pronunciation of an actual word.
I don't know. There's just certain groups of people that tend to like, oh, my entertainment means more to me, and it makes me an intellectual just by knowing it. So, there was a kid. I think she was about 16, and I was talking to my friend. The friend was her mother, and we were talking about anime, and I said Akira, and she said it's pronounced Nakida, and I said no, it's not. If it's pronounced anything differently, it's definitely not that. And then I had to sit there and tell her the difference between the anime Cased Closed, which apparently is called
Detective
Nakida.
Conan or something.
Yeah, it's called something that sounds like a messed up version of Akira in Japan. So, like, that's okay. And she felt really dumb after I told her that there's a movie called Akira. But, like, no, really, there is a movie called Akira. I've been around a little longer than you have, a 16-year-old.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, Vince, is that I think the problem is more that it's just people being pretentious and irritating more than how they're pronouncing things.
Yeah.
Well, I admit that's why in like foreign language type of stuff, I usually just try to not talk to people about it because, you have like the two sort of hard-lined camps, and I just, it's easier just not to get involved with it, and so I just try to ignore it and stay on one side of the line and just, let people be, I guess. But
I suppose what I'm really trying to say is I just don't care to be told that it's pronounced anime. I guess that's my point. Call it that if you want. I really don't care. But when we wake up the next day, I'm still going to call it anime because that's kind of what I'm hardwired to call it, and that's what we do call it in America. I don't walk around going, man, that country right next to France, España? No, it's Spain.
Yeah.
What we
Yeah.
call it.
I get this sometimes with actually quite a bit. Anytime I bring up Ra's al Ghul,
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I just got to mention that real
It's
quick.
pronounced whatever I want to call it.
Yeah. It's Ra's al Ghul or it's Ra's al Ghul, and it's pronounced differently depending on who's writing and what they're doing with it. And they're I mean, I'm not trying to complain about anybody in particular, but there's just some people that are like look, it's pronounced Ra's al Ghul, you know what I mean? I'm like, well, but the problem is that it's not always pronounced that way. Like, there's a film where they call it Ra's al Ghul, you know what I mean? So like, if I'm talking about that movie, like, whether or not you think that it should be pronounced Ra's al Ghul, if I'm talking about Batman Begins, I'm going to call him Ra's al Ghul. If I'm talking about Batman Animated Series, I'm more likely to say Ra's because that's what he's called in that show.
Yeah. Well, it certainly becomes, a much more open-ended when you have, separate continuities and, because then you can do whatever you want to. There are new precedents are set and yeah.
Yeah, and I think we're splitting hairs for no good reason, too, with it, It's just like, who cares?
Yeah. Every so often I like to get out my big cleaving claymore sword and try to see if I can split a hair or two. Usually doesn't work.
But yeah, I admit that like in my Dragon Ball videos, for example, I tend to just say the TV series or the comic book just to avoid any kind of pronunciation type things. Like let's just make it easy. Anybody can get behind TV show or cartoon or comic book, and that way it's simple and fun. Everybody stays happy.
Wow, I can't believe Fusion just pronounced comic book wrong.
That comic book.
I hate you.
No, you have to pronounce it like Metallica. Be comic book. Ah.
Anyway, Jeff, what's your rant?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about folks who work at fast food restaurants. I went to a McDonald's last night and got a hamburger because they have those there. And I was yeah, I know, it's crazy. Their main entree is
KFC.
Not the McRib. It's true. So I was standing in line at McDonald's, and there were like 3 or 4 people in line, and this woman behind the counter kept saying whenever she got finished with a customer, she would call to the line and she would say, "Next one, please." That bothered me. Next one. Like we're like she's herding cattle or something, you know what I mean? I'm like that just, it's so impersonal. Next one. And then it got worse because when my wife got up to, I was getting drinks or something, and Sarah went up to get the tray of our food, and the woman, when she was calling out people's order numbers, never looked up, so she called everyone sir. And it didn't matter who picked up the food. Everyone was sir. So my wife went over and picked up the food, and she called her sir. Never looked up.
Oh, it's funny. It's like at my store, and I work at a very popular lingerie chain, but I get called ma'am all the time. It's like because I guess people just assume that everybody who works there is a woman. So I'll just ask if anybody needs help. They don't even look up and just say, "Oh, well, no, ma'am." And sometimes they'll catch themselves and sometimes they won't. They'll look up and go, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and sometimes they won't even bother and just not even realize they said anything. It amuses me more than anything. It never really offends me, but I just find it kind of funny.
Yeah, I've called women sir before, but that's just because I didn't actually realize that they were women.
I've done that once before, and it still mortifies me to this day.
Yeah, you always feel bad about it. It's not like you're just like that impersonal or insensitive. But like this lady at McDonald's, I just felt like it was like I'm just getting through my night, like she was never actually having any real like contact with a human being. I just thought it was very bizarre. Yeah. And I mean I get that that's not everybody's favorite job. I mean I get that people get that there are probably a lot of people who work at McDonald's who get mistreated by customers and feel like they're not being treated like people and stuff like that. But I think it's really bad to just like default to, well, I'm going to get treated like this anyway, so I'm going to treat all my customers that way. Like,
yeah, I mean it's applying a general rudeness to the general public when it's only a certain group of people that actually treat you that way.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, I don't look down at people for working at McDonald's. My dad and my stepmom have been in the food service for years and years and years. I have a lot of respect for people in the food service industry, and even fast food. It's not like oh, fast food workers aren't people because they work in fast food. Like that's ridiculous. Like I don't treat people like that. You know, you're a person if you're a person, and so like it just kind of bugged me when I wanted next one. Wow. I'm next one, Fusion.
No, you're not.
At least you're a sir.
Yeah, it was like, if I ever see that lady again, I'm going to make sure I'm the one picking up the tray just so that it's not as embarrassing, you know.
Anyway, thank you, sir, when you pick up the tray from her.
Yeah.
That's what Sarah told me too. Anyway. Well, Fusion, do you have any rants?
Let's see. I'm pretty at peace with the world right now. I guess I could say, you know, rant about, you know, girlfriends who beat me at Mario Kart, but yeah, I'm okay with that too. Actually, it's okay. Healthy competition is good for the soul and good for the spirit, and I just like getting to play Mario Kart again for the first time in 3 years. So
just have this general disdain for girls being better at video games than you, Fusion.
No, I don't have any gender hang-ups like that. Girls can beat me all they want. Wait.
As long as they're cooking you dinner at the end of the night.
Well, that's true. If they're okay, yeah. I can handle it then. I just need food.
Well, on that note, thanks everybody for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. And Fusion, thanks a lot for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me.
We will be back again with another exciting topic and more rants in 2 weeks. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Vince.
And I am Mistare Fusion.
See you next time.